The Treaty of Proxima had stood for 5 centuries, an unprecedented achievement in galactic diplomacy. Signed after the brutal human-Krell war that had devastated 17 star systems, it represented something remarkable. Mutual exhaustion had bred genuine peace. The treaty's terms were simple, enforced by both sides with religious fervor. No military incursions. No territorial violations. No acts of aggression. For 500 years, it held. Ambassador Tesh of the Krell Dominion reviewed the Border Patrol reports with satisfaction. The demilitarized zone between human and Krell space had seen nothing but authorized trade vessels and diplomatic envoys for longer than most species' entire civilizations lasted. His people had built monuments to the peace, written songs about it, restructured their entire society around cooperation rather than conquest. He had no way of knowing that all of it was about to unravel because of a single, catastrophic mistake. The Mercy's Hand was a civilian medical frigate operating under the Joint Human-Krell Humanitarian Accords, one of the treaty's most celebrated provisions. Dr. James Mitchell had served aboard her for 3 years, treating patients from dozens of species in the neutral zones between territories. The Red Cross emblazoned on the ship's hull was recognized across known space as inviolable. Mitchell was in the middle of a surgery reconstructing the shattered limb of a Krell mining accident victim when the ship's alarms screamed to life. "All hands, brace for impact." Captain Rodriguez's voice cracked through the intercom. "We're under fire." The first impact threw Mitchell against the operating table. Emergency containment fields snapped into place around his patient as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Through the viewport, Mitchell saw the attacking vessel, a Krell warship, its weapons arrays glowing with barely contained energy. The second shot was more precise. It punched through the medical frigate's shields and tore into the portside. Explosive decompression killed 12 crew members instantly. Mitchell felt the deck lurch beneath him as bulkheads sealed, trapping him in the surgical bay with his unconscious Krell patient. The third shot hit the ship's reactor. The Mercy's Hand began to die. Commander Z.H. Rack of the Krell warship Vengeance's Talon realized his error 3 seconds after his weapons officer reported the target destroyed. The sensor officer's voice shook as she delivered the identification. "Sir, that was a medical vessel. Human registry. Protected under the humanitarian accords." Z.H. Rack's blood ran cold. He was a young commander, eager to prove himself, operating a patrol route that had seen zero action in his entire lifetime. When his sensors had detected what appeared to be a human ship crossing into Krell space, a navigation error by the medical frigate's autopilot, he had acted on instinct and outdated training protocols. He had just committed the first act of violence against humans in 500 years. And he had shot at their medics. The distress signal from the Mercy's Hand reached Earthfleet Command 47 minutes after the attack. Admiral Patricia Okonkwo had been reviewing retirement plans when the message came through. She read it once, then again, her hands gripping the edge of her desk hard enough to leave marks in the metal. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," she said quietly. "And someone wake up the Secretary General. Tell them it's started again." Her aide, a young officer who had grown up in an era where the human-Krell war was ancient history, looked confused. "Ma'am, started again? Surely this is just an isolated incident." "The treaty." "The treaty," Okonkwo interrupted, her voice hard as diamond, "was built on one absolute understanding. You can kill our soldiers. You can destroy our warships. You can fight us in open battle. But you never, ever target our medics." She stood, reaching for her uniform jacket. "The Krell were there when we wrote that rule into the treaty. They watched what happened the last time someone shot at human medical personnel." The aide swallowed. "What happened, ma'am?" "We burned 14 of their worlds," Okonkwo said flatly. "Not as military targets. As a message. That was during the war, when we were already enemies." She walked toward the door, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent office. "God help them now that we were friends." Ambassador Tesh received the emergency communication from Z.H. Rack 17 minutes after Okonkwo. He listened to the young commander's stammering confession with growing horror, then immediately opened a priority channel to human diplomatic headquarters. "This is a terrible mistake," he said without preamble when the human ambassador appeared on screen. "Commander ZH has been relieved of duty. He will face trial for treaty violation. We will pay any reparations." "Please, Ambassador Williams, this does not need to escalate." Ambassador Williams, an elderly woman who had been born during the war and carried scars from the conflict, looked at him with an expression of profound sadness. "Tesh, my old friend. You know it's not up to us anymore. The civilian government can stop this," Tesh insisted. "Your Secretary General is probably being ignored by Fleet Command right now," Williams interrupted. "Tesh, do you remember why we put the medical provision into the treaty? Why we made it absolutely inviolable?" Tesh's throat sacs contracted with distress. "Because humans have a peculiar cultural response to violence against healers." "Cultural response," Williams repeated softly. "That's a diplomatic way of putting it. Here's the truth, humans can forgive a lot. We're actually quite good at moving past violence when it's soldier against soldier, warrior against warrior. We understand that kind of conflict, we've been doing it to ourselves for millennia." Her voice hardened. "But medics? Doctors? Nurses? People who've dedicated their lives to healing? People who go into war zones unarmed, wearing symbols that say, 'I am not a combatant'?" She leaned closer to the camera. "When you shoot at them, you're not just attacking an individual. You're attacking the very concept of mercy. And humans don't forgive that, Tesh. We don't forget it. We can't." Dr. Mitchell regained consciousness in an escape pod, the ship's AI having managed to evacuate survivors before the reactor breach. His head pounded and his left arm was clearly broken, but he was alive. Through the pod's small viewport, he could see the debris field that had been the Mercy's hand, and further away, the Krell warship that was now frantically broadcasting surrender signals. Too late for that, Mitchell thought distantly. He'd lived through the small proxy conflicts, the minor border skirmishes that had flared up and been quickly suppressed over the past 5 centuries. He understood intellectually what was coming. He still wasn't prepared when the first human battle fleet translated into real space. It was the Third Fleet, the legendary Black Crosses, a fleet composed entirely of medical personnel who had retrained as combat pilots after the original war. They'd been mothballed for 300 years, maintained as a historical curiosity and a reminder. They weren't a curiosity anymore. Admiral Sarah Chen, no relation to the Dr. Chun from centuries past, but carrying the same implacable determination, opened a channel to the Krell warship. "Commander ZH. You are under arrest for violation of the Treaty of Proxima, Article 12, Humanitarian Protocols. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." ZH complied immediately. It didn't matter. The trial lasted 6 days. Commander ZH was found guilty of all charges. The sentence, as mandated by the treaty itself, was execution. Ambassador Tkesh fought desperately for clemency, and to his surprise, the human government agreed. "The commander made a mistake," Secretary General Johnson announced. "A terrible one, but a mistake nonetheless. In the spirit of the peace that has lasted 500 years, we will show mercy." The Krell Dominion breathed a collective sigh of relief. Perhaps the peace would hold after all. They didn't understand humans very well. The reparations demanded by Earth were specific and non-negotiable. The Krell would dismantle their entire forward fleet, 73 warships, and convert them into hospital ships. Every Krell military officer above the rank of captain would spend 1 year serving in human medical facilities, learning exactly what they had attacked. The Krell government would fund a new medical academy on the human colony of New Geneva, to be named after the crew of the Mercy's Hand. And most significantly, the demilitarized zone would be expanded by 3 light years, entirely into Krell territory. "This is unreasonable," the Krell High Council protested. "Those systems contain vital resources. Strategic positions. You're crippling our defensive capabilities." Ambassador Williams listened to their objections with patient silence. When they finished, she spoke quietly, "You shot at a medical ship. You killed doctors, nurses, and patience under protection of every law we hold sacred. The fact that Commander ZHRAC still breathes is more mercy than you have any right to expect. She leaned forward. Accept these terms, or we go back to what we were doing 500 years ago. And I promise you, we've gotten much better at it. The Krell accepted. 50 years later, Dr. James Mitchell attended the dedication ceremony for the Mitchell Medical Institute, built on the expanded border between human and Krell space. He was old now, his hair white and his movements slow, but he'd lived to see something remarkable. The peace treaty had held. It looked different now. The Krell had embraced medical training with the fervor of the converted, producing some of the finest doctors in known space. The joint hospital ships that patrolled the border zone saved thousands of lives each year. The cultural exchange programs had created a generation of Krell who understood humans not as former enemies, but as people. But everyone remembered what had happened when the treaty was violated. Everyone remembered the price. Ambassador Tesh, now elderly himself, stood beside Mitchell at the ceremony. "Your people are very good at forgiveness," he said softly. "But you never forget." Mitchell smiled slightly. "We can work with people who fight us. We can make peace with people who kill us. But if you want to stay on our good side?" He gestured to the gleaming medical facility, where humans and Krell worked side by side. "Don't shoot the people trying to save lives." "A lesson learned," Tesh agreed. "One we will carry forward for another 500 years. The peace treaty held. It would hold for much longer now, because everyone understood that mercy had limits, and humans defended those limits with absolute resolve. You could cross humans in many ways. But you crossed their healers only once.